The sun had just started peeking through the pine trees when Mark stood back and admired his weekend project. A brand new black iron gate freshly installed at the mouth of his driveway. It wasn't anything fancy, just a simple, sturdy gate with a private drive, no trespassing sign bolted in the center. After weeks of seeing delivery vans, random walkers, and even HOA members turning around on his gravel driveway, Mark finally decided enough was enough. He'd only moved into the neighborhood a month ago, but he could already tell the place was crawling with nosy neighbors and HOA patrol wannabes. He smiled to himself, brushing his hands together. Finally, a little peace and quiet. He hadn't even made it inside when he heard it, the sharp clack, clack, clack of sandals slapping pavement. Then a loud voice rang out. Excuse me, sir." Mark turned, instantly recognizing the tone that said, "Rules apply to you, but not me." Marching up the street was Karen, the unofficial queen of the cul-de-sac, blonde bob haircut, giant sunglasses, floral robe, and of course the HOA clipboard. She stopped at the gate, glaring at it like it personally offended her. "You can't put this up," she barked. "This community has a very open aesthetic. You're blocking the visual flow." Mark blinked. "The visual flow?" "Yes. The board specifically prohibits any kind of visual obstruction that disrupts neighborhood harmony." He tried not to laugh. "Karen, this is my driveway. I checked the property map. This line here?" He pointed at the gravel. "That's my property line. The gate's a few feet inside it." Karen squinted at him, clutching her clipboard tighter. "You're new here, so maybe you don't understand how things work. You're part of the HOA now. That means this area," she gestured dramatically toward his driveway, "falls under our guidelines." Mark smiled politely. "Actually, no. My property was subdivided before the HOA formed. This section's private." Karen blinked, thrown off for just a moment before recovering with a huff. "Well, I'll have to verify that with the board." "Please do," Mark said calmly. "You'll see I'm right." She sniffed. "You'll regret this." And with that, she spun around and stomped off, slippers flapping like angry applause. The next morning, Mark was sipping his coffee when his phone buzzed, an email from the HOA. Subject: Notice of violation, unauthorized structure on HOA property action. Required: remove gate immediately or face. Fines, Mark chuckled. Wow, that was fast. He ignored it. He'd read his deed, double-checked his boundaries, and even confirmed with the county. The HOA had no authority here, but apparently Karen didn't like being ignored. 2 days later, as Mark was painting the porch railing, he heard giggling. He turned and saw a teenage boy, maybe 16, standing near the gate, phone in hand. He recognized him instantly. Ethan, Karen's son. He was whispering into his phone, looking around nervously like he was planning a heist. Mark frowned but didn't think much of it, until, 10 minutes later, he heard the distant whoop of sirens. 2 police cruisers rolled up, lights flashing. Mark's stomach dropped. You've got to be kidding me. He stepped down from the porch and walked toward the gate. The officers got out, one of them holding a notepad. Afternoon, sir, said the taller one. We got a call about a possible unlawful barrier on a public access road. Mark blinked. Unlawful barrier? You mean my gate? The officer nodded. Caller said residents were being blocked from entering their neighborhood. And right on cue, Karen appeared. Robe swapped for a blazer, hair perfectly styled, dragging her son Ethan by the arm. That's him, she shouted, pointing dramatically. He locked us out of our own community road. Ethan puffed out his chest. Yeah, he said we couldn't go through. That's illegal. Mark crossed his arms. You mean the driveway that ends at my house? Karen scoffed. This road's always been open to everyone. You can't just gate it off. The officer looked at her, clearly tired. Ma'am, what's the address of this road? Karen hesitated. Uh, it's connected to Maple Circle. Mark handed over his paperwork calmly. It's not. This section's private property. County registry and parcel map right there. The officer studied it for a moment, then nodded. He's right, ma'am. This isn't public access. Karen blinked. What? Ethan looked at his mom, panicked. But you said, quiet, she snapped. The officer sighed. Also, calling 911 for non-emergency issues isn't appropriate, especially for something like this. Ethan mumbled. Mom told me to call... Karen's face went pale. He misunderstood me. Mark just smiled, leaning casually against his gate. Don't worry, officer. I'll let them know next time before I lock my own driveway. Even the cop smirked. Appreciate your time, sir. Have a good day. As they left, Karen tried to save face. You'll regret this, she shouted again, voice cracking slightly. Mark just waved, calm as ever. Already heard that one, Karen. And when the patrol cars disappeared down the street, he quietly shut the gate, clicked the lock, and said to himself, maybe I should add a second lock, just in case. For a few days, things were quiet, almost suspiciously quiet. No Karen pacing outside, no emails from the HOA, no accidental trespassers pretending to turn around. Mark almost thought it was over. Until one Thursday evening, a cream-colored envelope appeared in his mailbox. The heading read, Notice of Mandatory HOA Disciplinary Hearing. Mark laughed out loud. Disciplinary hearing for what? Owning my property? Still, his curiosity got the better of him. He decided to attend, mostly because he didn't trust what story Karen would spin without him there. The meeting took place at the Maple Grove Community Center, a building that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Fluorescent lights, fold-out chairs, a podium, and a big banner that said, HOA, maintaining harmony, one rule at a time. Mark walked in, and every head turned. At the front sat the HOA board, Linda, the president, who always looked like she was 2 bad minutes away from a stress migraine. Gary, the treasurer, who didn't seem to know what year it was. And of course, Karen, sitting proudly with a stack of printed emails, probably the evidence. Karen smirked when she saw Mark. Oh, how nice of you to join us. I wasn't sure you'd show up to defend your... actions. Mark took a seat near the back. Wouldn't miss it. Linda cleared her throat. All right, everyone, let's get started. The first order of business. A community complaint regarding a locked gate on property adjacent to HOA-managed land. Karen immediately stood, like she'd been rehearsing this moment all week. I'd like to begin, she said, voice dripping with false concern. Our community thrives on openness, trust, and accessibility. Yet one homeowner has decided to wall himself off, install a gate, and block others from entering what we've always considered shared space. She held up a photo, clearly taken from the sidewalk, zoomed in. This gate sends the wrong message about who we are. Murmurs rippled through the room. One elderly neighbor whispered, Did he really block the road? Another muttered, I drive that way sometimes to cut through. Karen's smirk widened. Exactly. It's about the principle. Mark finally stood. With all due respect, that gate is on my private property. It's legally documented, verified by the county, and has nothing to do with the HOA. Karen scoffed. Oh, please. Everyone knows property lines around here are flexible. It's community tradition. Mark raised an eyebrow. Community tradition isn't the law, Karen. A few people chuckled quietly. Linda, looking exhausted, rubbed her temples. All right, let's not turn this into an argument. Karen, did you bring any proof that this property is under HOA jurisdiction? Karen nodded, dramatically flipping through her clipboard like she was unveiling classified intel. Yes, right here. She froze. The papers in her hand were blank forms. The maps she'd printed were just outlines from Google. There was a mix-up, she stammered. Mark crossed his arms, amused. You mean there's no proof? A voice from the back chimed in. It was Mr. Henson, the retired lawyer who lived 2 streets down. For the record, he said, I reviewed the original land parcels years ago. His property was never annexed into the HOA. Karen's jaw dropped. That can't be. Henson shrugged. Afraid it can? You've got no authority over that land. Karen's face went red, the kind of red that matched her blazer. Mark grinned. Guess the disciplinary hearing is dismissed then? Linda sighed, clearly eager to move on. Yes, I think that concludes this matter. But Karen wasn't finished. She slammed her clipboard onto the table. So anyone can just do whatever they want now? Next thing you know, people will have fences, dogs, and flags. Someone from the back muttered, You mean like America? The room burst into quiet laughter. Mark couldn't resist. Careful, Karen. You might need to call 911 again if I hang a flag. Even Linda, the usually stone-faced president, smirked at that one. Karen's face twisted. You think this is funny? Honestly, Mark said, a little. After the meeting ended, Karen stormed outside, muttering about lawyers and property encroachment. Her son Ethan was waiting by the car, scrolling through his phone. How'd it go, Mom? She slammed the door. They don't get it. None of them. That man's ruining this neighborhood. Ethan frowned. So, are we gonna, drop it? Karen glared at him. Drop it? Absolutely not. If the HOA can't stop him, I will. Meanwhile, back at his house, Mark kicked back on his porch with a cup of tea. The sky was orange with sunset, the air still and quiet. No HOA emails, no patrols, no 911 calls. He leaned back and smiled. Finally, some peace. But just as he took a sip, his phone buzzed again. A text, unknown number. Enjoy your little gate while you can. The county will be hearing from me next. He sighed, shaking his head. She really doesn't give up. Then he smiled faintly. Good thing I kept every bit of proof. Because if Karen wanted another round, Mark was more than ready. For a brief, blissful week, things seemed normal again. Mark's dog, Max, was back to his daily naps under the oak tree. The gate, his now infamous crime scene, stood proudly locked, creaking softly whenever the wind passed through. But peace doesn't last long when a Karen is involved. A surprise call from the county. It was a Tuesday morning when Mark's phone rang. Mr. Lawson, the voice said, this is Dean Peters with the County Zoning and Property Office. We've received a formal complaint regarding an illegal obstruction of community access. Could we schedule a property inspection? Mark sighed, already guessing who was behind it. Let me guess, he said. Short blonde hair, loud voice, thinks she runs the neighborhood? Dean chuckled quietly. You're not the first person to describe her that way. Mark agreed to the inspection, partly because he wanted to get this over with, and partly because he knew he had every document in order. The inspection day. 2 days later, a white county truck pulled up near the driveway. Dean stepped out, clipboard in hand, wearing a polite but tired smile. He looked like a man who'd seen too many pointless complaints. And of course, right behind him, like clockwork, was Karen. She wasn't even pretending to be subtle, wearing sunglasses, holding her phone like a news reporter. As Dean started inspecting the property line, she whispered to her phone camera, Here it is, folks, in clear obstruction of public land. This is what happens when people think they're above the HOA. Mark crossed his arms. You live streaming this now? Karen smirked. Just documenting the truth. Dean ignored them both, walking the perimeter and checking the posts. He compared GPS coordinates, took photos, and asked Mark for the deed copies. Mark handed over a neatly labeled folder. Survey, land deed, and HOA exemption. All up to date. Dean flipped through the papers, nodding. Everything looks in order here. Karen blinked. What? No, that can't be right. The HOA map says this area belongs to us. Dean looked at her calmly. Ma'am, HOA maps don't override county records. Karen's mouth fell open. Then, you're saying he can just lock people out? That's exactly what private property means, Dean said. Karen's meltdown. Karen's live stream comments were now rolling in fast. He's so rude. Typical homeowner who hates the community. You should call the news. Mark leaned closer and said, You want to tell your followers that you filed a fake report? Karen gasped, clutching her pearls, metaphorically and literally. You can't talk to me like that. This is harassment. Dean stepped between them. All right, let's calm down. Ma'am, the complaint was unfounded. If you continue to interfere, I'll have to make a note of it. Karen's livestream caught her face turning beet red. Unfounded? So this whole inspection was for nothing? Dean glanced at his notes. Not nothing. It confirmed he's in compliance. If anything, you just helped him prove it. Mark grinned. Appreciate the assist, Karen. Karen's return. Just as Karen was packing up her phone and fuming, a familiar car rolled up. Her son Ethan again. He looked embarrassed. Mom, seriously? You called the county this time? Karen snapped. I'm protecting our neighborhood, Ethan. Someone has to take responsibility. Ethan looked at Mark apologetically. Sorry about her, man. She gets invested. Mark shrugged. You're not the first to say that. But then Ethan hesitated. She's been online all week, trying to get people to back her up. Some folks from other HOAs actually agreed with her. Said they'd show up to protest the illegal gate. Mark frowned. Protest? You've got to be kidding me. Karen just smiled, the kind of smile that said she wasn't done yet. Oh, I wouldn't call it a protest, she said sweetly. Just a gathering of concerned citizens. Dean looked between them, clearly realizing this was about to spiral into something ridiculous. Ma'am, he warned, you start a disturbance here and that becomes a police issue. Karen scoffed. Oh, please. It's just freedom of assembly. Mark rolled his eyes. Freedom of delusion, maybe. The HOA meeting goes public. Later that night, Mark's name was trending, at least locally. Karen had posted her exclusive footage of the inspection, twisting every detail to make it look like the county was undecided. The comments section was a battlefield. Some supported Mark. Private property means private property. She's clearly obsessed with this guy. But others took Karen's side. He's hiding something. If you move into a community, you follow the rules. By morning, Mark's mailbox was stuffed again, but this time, not with HOA letters. Reporters wanted interviews. TikTok HOA fanatics wanted his side. He ignored all of it. He'd been through enough Karen chaos for a lifetime. But Karen had one last move. A week later, Mark was finally starting to laugh about the whole thing. He even joked with his friends that maybe he'd install a second gate just to double offend the HOA. Then one morning, as he walked out to get the paper, he saw it, a large, handwritten sign stuck into his lawn. Community access denied by greedy neighbor. Boycott lot Nutter 48. Mark stared at it in disbelief. Oh, for crying out loud! Before he could even react, a police car slowly rolled by, again. He waved. Morning, officer. Want me to guess who called this time? The officer smirked. You don't even have to. It was official. Karen had gone from neighborhood nuisance to full-blown public crusader. But what she didn't know? Mark had been quietly recording everything. Every visit, every inspection, every ridiculous accusation. And now, he was about to use all of it, because the next call wasn't going to the police. It was going straight to a lawyer. The day had finally come. After weeks of endless calls, fake complaints, and online drama, Mark stood outside the county courthouse, wearing his best jacket, the kind that said, "I'm done putting up with nonsense." Beside him stood his lawyer, Amanda Price, a sharp, composed woman known for dismantling HOA disputes like they were high school debates. Mark looked at her and smirked. Think she'll actually show up? Amanda adjusted her glasses. Oh, she'll show up. People like her don't miss a chance to be the center of attention. She was right. The arrival. A white SUV screeched into the parking lot, practically hitting the curb. Out stepped Karen, sunglasses on, hair perfectly sprayed into battle formation. And following behind her, as usual, was her son, Ethan, holding a stack of binders. Mark almost felt bad for the kid. Almost. Karen strutted toward the courthouse doors like it was her kingdom. "Let's settle this once and for all," she announced loudly enough for everyone within 50 feet to hear. Amanda leaned toward Mark. If confidence were evidence, she'd win every case. Mark chuckled. Good thing it's not. Inside the courtroom. The courtroom was small but tense. A handful of neighbors had even shown up to watch, whispering among themselves like it was the latest episode of HOA Drama Live. The judge, an older man named Judge Hamilton, tapped his gavel once. Court is now in session. Case number 2147, Lawson versus the Evergreen Lake HOA and Ms. Karen Miller. Karen shot Mark a triumphant glare. "You'll regret this," she muttered. Mark simply smiled. "I've regretted nothing since I locked that gate." The evidence, Amanda stood first. "Your Honor, my client, Mr. Lawson, is the legal owner of his property, as confirmed by county deeds and prior inspections. The HOA, led by Ms. Miller, has repeatedly violated his privacy and made false police and county reports." She placed a USB drive on the table. "We have video evidence of these incidents." Karen immediately jumped up. "Objection! Those videos are taken out of context." The judge sighed. "Ms. Miller, please sit down. We'll review them." Amanda played the first clip, Karen yelling at Mark's gate, calling it a threat to the community. Then another, Karen live-streaming the county inspection, claiming victory before being corrected by the inspector. And finally, Ethan's 911 call, sheepishly explaining that, "My mom told me to." The courtroom was dead silent, until a few muffled laughs echoed from the back row. Karen's face turned redder by the second. Karen's defense. When it was her turn, Karen leaped up dramatically. "Your Honor, this man has terrorized our community. He refuses to participate in neighborhood meetings. He locks us out of shared access." "Shared access?" Amanda interrupted. "To his private driveway?" Karen ignored her. "And he's been filming me without my consent." Judge Hamilton frowned. "Ms. Miller, these recordings were taken in public spaces during interactions you initiated. That is not illegal." Karen blinked rapidly. But, he's mocking me online." Amanda smiled politely. "Your own live videos have been viewed over 40,000 times, Ms. Miller. You did that yourself." Even Ethan couldn't hold back a nervous laugh. Ethan's testimony. Then came a twist no one expected. When called to testify, Ethan stood awkwardly before the judge. "Son," the judge asked, "did your mother instruct you to make that 911 call?" Ethan hesitated. "Yeah, she told me to say there was suspicious activity. I didn't really think it through." Karen gasped. "Ethan!" He looked at her, guilt written all over his face. "Mom, I told you it was dumb. He didn't do anything wrong." A ripple of whispers spread across the room. Even the judge's expression softened, not toward Karen, but toward Ethan. Judge Hamilton leaned forward. "Thank you, son. That took some honesty." The verdict. After reviewing the evidence, the judge didn't waste much time. He tapped the gavel once. "This court finds no wrongdoing by Mr. Lawson. All property rights remain solely with him. Furthermore, Ms. Miller and the HOA are hereby issued a formal warning for harassment and misuse of emergency services." Karen's jaw dropped. "You can't do that. I was trying to—" "Ma'am," the judge interrupted, "if you interrupt me again, I'll fine you for contempt." Karen froze. Amanda smiled faintly. Justice served. The aftermath. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. Yes, reporters. Apparently, Karen's drama had attracted enough online attention to make it newsworthy. Mark stepped out, waving politely but saying nothing. Karen, however, couldn't help herself. "This isn't over," she shouted. Amanda muttered, "It's very over." Ethan just sighed. "Mom, maybe we should, I don't know, move?" Karen looked at him in disbelief. "Move? This is my neighborhood." "Not anymore," Mark said, walking past her. "It's mine, and it's locked." 1 month later, the gate was still there. The paint had faded slightly, but Mark left it untouched, a symbol of peace hard-earned. Since the ruling, the HOA had gone quiet. Karen kept a low profile, though sometimes Mark would catch her peeking from her window when he walked by. He didn't hold a grudge anymore. He'd learned that with people like her, silence was the real victory. As he leaned against the gate one evening, Max resting by his side, Mark smiled. The sunset cast a golden glow over his land, and for once, no sirens, no shouts, no HOA letters, just calm. He whispered to himself, "Finally, home means home again."